Take two kids with the same IQ, same work ethic, same dreams, but different addresses. 20 years later, one is a millionaire and the other is drowning in debt. This isn't some feel-good story about overcoming the odds. I'm talking about kids who did everything right, studied hard, stayed out of trouble, had the same dreams of success. But one grew up 3 miles from Google's headquarters and the other grew up 3 miles from a shuttered factory. That distance might as well have been 3 different planets. Because what I discovered isn't just about schools or hospitals or job opportunities, it's about something much more insidious. A system that's so embedded in how we live that most people don't even realize it exists. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The question isn't whether your zip code determines your future. The question is, what happens when an entire generation realizes the game was rigged from birth? Let me show you exactly how this works using two kids I'll call Marcus and Tyler, both born in 1995, both in California, both with parents who worked full-time jobs, both scored in the 85th percentile on standardized tests, both dreamed of starting their own companies. And today, Marcus just closed a Series A funding round for his tech startup. Tyler is working 2 part-time jobs and can't afford to move out of his childhood bedroom. The difference: Marcus grew up in Palo Alto, zip code 94301. Tyler grew up in Stockton, zip code 95202. Your zip code doesn't just determine where you live, it determines how long you live. In Chicago, if you're born in Streeterville, you can expect to live to 90. Born in Englewood, just 8 miles south, you'll be lucky to see 60. That's a 30-year difference in life expectancy based purely on geography. Marcus breathed clean air in Palo Alto. Tyler's elementary school in Stockton was built downwind from 3 industrial facilities. By age 7, Tyler was using an inhaler. Marcus was playing soccer year-round. But the health disparity is just the beginning. School funding in America is based on local property taxes, which means wealthy zip codes generate more money per student than poor zip codes. How much more? In some states, the difference is over $20,000 per student per year. Marcus's elementary school spent $18,000 per student. They had art classes, music programs, computer labs, and a 15-to-1 student-teacher ratio. Tyler's school spent $8,000 per student, overcrowded classrooms, outdated textbooks, no art or music programs, and a 28-to-1 ratio. The funding gap creates what economists call peer effects. When you're surrounded by kids whose parents are engineers and doctors, you absorb different expectations. Marcus's classmates talked about which colleges they wanted to attend. Tyler's classmates talked about which ones they might be able to afford. By high school, the average SAT score in Marcus's zip code was 1420. In Tyler's zip code, it was 890, not because kids in Palo Alto are genetically smarter, but because they've received superior resources since kindergarten, plus SAT prep courses that cost more than Tyler's family spends on groceries in a month. Even if Tyler scored as well as Marcus, he'd still face massive disadvantages in college admissions. Colleges look at extracurriculars, leadership experience, and volunteer work. Marcus played varsity tennis, was debate club president, and volunteered at a nonprofit his mom's friend ran. Tyler worked at McDonald's after school to help his family pay bills. The college admissions process isn't just biased toward wealthy students, it's designed by them. When admissions officers want well-rounded applicants, they're describing kids who had the luxury of not working during high school. Marcus got into Stanford, Tyler got into community college. Here's what the data shows. Only 17% of community college students transfer to 4-year universities and complete bachelor's degrees. The system isn't designed for transfer success. It's designed to keep students in their lane. But the zip code advantage doesn't stop at education. It extends into the job market through something called social capital networks of relationships that provide access to opportunities. Marcus's first job came through his roommate's dad at a venture capital firm. Tyler's came through Indeed.com. Marcus started as a product manager with equity options. Tyler started in customer service at a call center. In wealthy zip codes, social capital is abundant and multi-generational. Marcus's neighbors included startup founders, VCs, and tech executives. Tyler's neighbors worked retail and service jobs. When Marcus wanted to start his company, he accessed friends and family funding. His roommate's parents invested $50,000. His tennis coach, a retired tech executive, invested $25,000. His mom's book club friend introduced him to VCs. Tyler had a better business idea: a logistics app for small delivery companies. But he was navigating a world he didn't understand, using language he'd never learned, accessing networks he'd never been part of. He got rejected from accelerators, told his idea wasn't scalable, and eventually gave up. Marcus's company wasn't revolutionary, a social media platform for pet owners, but he had access to Stanford's entrepreneurship program and Silicon Valley's ecosystem. Investors bet on him not because his idea was brilliant, but because he fit the profile of someone they'd seen succeed before. This is homophily. the tendency for similar people to connect. Investors invest in entrepreneurs who remind them of themselves. Success breeds success, not because successful people are inherently better, but because they have access to resources that create more success. The health disparities go deeper than you think. Low-income neighborhoods are systematically targeted for environmental hazards. Highways are built through poor communities, not rich ones. Toxic facilities are zoned away from wealthy areas. Children in low-income zip codes are exposed to higher levels of pollution and toxins from birth. They develop asthma at higher rates, suffer lead poisoning, and face environmental health problems that affect cognitive development. And Tyler's asthma wasn't just a health problem, it was an educational disadvantage. He missed more school, had trouble concentrating, couldn't play sports. Marcus played 3 sports and never missed school due to illness. Healthcare access varies dramatically by zip code. Wealthy neighborhoods have more doctors per capita, better hospitals, shorter wait times. Poor neighborhoods are medical deserts with inadequate healthcare services. When Marcus broke his arm, he was treated at Stanford Children's Hospital by a specialist. When Tyler broke his arm, he waited 4 hours in the county ER. But here's the most insidious part. The stress of living in a low opportunity zip code changes your biology. Chronic stress triggers cortisol release, which impairs memory, reduces immune function, and accelerates aging. Children in high poverty zip codes show elevated cortisol levels by age 3. Their bodies are literally aging faster. Tyler's immune system was compromised by pollution, his cognitive development impaired by lead exposure, his stress response hyperactivated by neighborhood violence and economic insecurity. Now let's talk about intergenerational wealth transfer. Marcus's parents bought their Palo Alto house in 1990 for $400,000. By 2020, it was worth $2.8 million. Tyler's parents rented their entire lives because they couldn't afford a down payment. And when Marcus graduated college, his parents helped with a condo down payment. When Tyler graduated, his parents asked him to help with rent. Home ownership is how American families build wealth, but home ownership rates vary dramatically by zip code. In wealthy areas, rates are often above 80%. In poor areas, they can be below 30%. Marcus inherited money, credit access, and financial knowledge. Tyler inherited debt and financial stress. Marcus's parents could support him through unpaid internships and provide a safety net for risk-taking. Tyler's parents needed him contributing to household expenses from age 16. This system isn't an accident. It's the result of deliberate policy choices. The Federal Housing Administration refused to insure mortgages in integrated neighborhoods. Banks legally refused loans to Black families through redlining. Zoning laws excluded affordable housing from wealthy neighborhoods, and these policies created today's zip code inequality. The neighborhoods redlined in the 1940s still have the worst schools and lowest property values. The protected neighborhoods still have the best schools and highest values. School funding formulas relying on property taxes perpetuate educational inequality. Zoning laws excluding affordable housing perpetuate residential segregation. Weak environmental enforcement in poor neighborhoods perpetuates health disparities. And by age 30, Marcus had started 2 companies, sold one for $15 million, owned a $3.2 million San Francisco house, and had an $8 million stock portfolio. Tyler was making $45,000 as a logistics coordinator in Stockton, renting a 2-bedroom apartment, trying to save for a house down payment. The gap grew from 0 to over $10 million in 15 years, not because Marcus worked harder, but because he accessed a system designed to amplify advantages while Tyler faced a system designed to perpetuate disadvantages. But here's what's really happening across America. This isn't just about individual stories. It's about entire generations being sorted into different economic realities based on geography. The top 1% of zip codes by income have average household earnings of $1.7 million. The bottom 1% average $17,000. That's a 100-to-1 ratio. But it's not just about current income. It's about accumulated wealth, educational opportunities, health outcomes, and social connections that compound over generations. Children born in the top income zip codes have a 36% chance of reaching the top income quintile as adults. Children born in the bottom zip codes have a 7.5% chance. Your birth zip code is a better predictor of your adult income than your parents' income, your test scores, or your college attendance. The American dream of upward mobility isn't dead, but it's become geographically concentrated. If you're born in certain zip codes, primarily in the Northeast, West Coast, and parts of the Midwest, you have decent chances of moving up economically. If you're born in the Southeast or Rust Belt, your chances are much lower. This creates what economists call geographic inequality traps. Poor regions stay poor because their most talented residents leave for opportunities elsewhere, while wealthy regions get wealthier by attracting talent from across the country. The COVID pandemic made this even worse. Remote work allowed high earning professionals to leave expensive cities while keeping their salaries, driving up housing costs in previously affordable areas. Meanwhile, service workers in those same areas saw their wages stagnate while their housing costs skyrocketed. Tech workers fled San Francisco for Austin, bringing Bay Area salaries to Texas housing markets. The result: Austin home prices increased 40% in 2 years, pricing out longtime residents and creating new zip code inequality. But here's what nobody talks about: even if you escape your birth zip code, it follows you. Credit scores, which determine access to housing and employment, are partially based on your address history. Employers use zip codes to screen candidates. Colleges consider geographic diversity in admissions, but that often means favoring applicants from wealthy areas that are underrepresented at elite schools. Your childhood zip code becomes part of your permanent record. It affects your accent, your cultural references, your social networks, and your comfort level in different environments. Moving to a wealthy zip code as an adult doesn't erase the disadvantages you accumulated growing up in a poor one. The data on zip code mobility is stark. 70% of Americans live within 25 miles of where they grew up. Most people never escape their birth zip code's influence because they never leave. And for those who do leave, the advantages or disadvantages they accumulated in childhood follow them. This creates a self perpetuating system. Wealthy zip codes attract and retain successful people, making them wealthier. Poor zip codes lose their most successful residents, making them poorer. The gap widens every year. So, what can be done? The solutions exist, but they require admitting that zip code inequality isn't a natural phenomenon, it's a policy choice. School funding could be equalized through state level redistribution instead of local property taxes. Housing policy could require wealthy communities to include affordable options. Environmental regulations could be enforced equally across all neighborhoods. Healthcare access could be improved through targeted investment in underserved areas. And some places are trying. Montgomery County, Maryland requires new developments to include affordable housing. Massachusetts has a law requiring communities to have at least 10% affordable housing or face state intervention. North Carolina funds schools through state taxes rather than local property taxes. But these efforts face massive resistance from wealthy communities that benefit from the current system. They use zoning laws, environmental reviews, and political influence to maintain their advantages while keeping disadvantages concentrated elsewhere. The uncomfortable truth is that zip code inequality serves the interests of people in wealthy zip codes. Their property values depend on exclusivity. Their schools stay excellent because they don't have to serve disadvantaged populations. Their neighborhoods stay safe because crime is concentrated elsewhere. Marcus succeeded not just because of his individual efforts, but because his zip code was designed to produce success. Tyler struggled not because he lacked talent or drive, but because his zip code was designed to limit opportunities. This system is so embedded in American life that we mistake its outcomes for natural differences in ability or effort. We tell stories about individual success and failure while ignoring the structural forces that make success more likely in some places than others. The question isn't whether individuals can overcome zip code disadvantages, some do. The question is whether we're comfortable with a system that makes success depend on the lottery of birth geography, because here's what's really at stake. American democracy depends on the belief that everyone has a fair chance at success. When that chance is determined by zip code, when entire regions are written off as places where dreams go to die, the social contract breaks down. We're already seeing the political consequences. The 2016 and 2020 elections revealed deep geographic divides that mirror economic inequality. Wealthy zip codes vote differently than poor ones, not just because of individual preferences, but because they have fundamentally different experiences of American opportunity. When people in declining zip codes see others in thriving zip codes talking about meritocracy and individual responsibility, they know it's not the whole story. They've watched their communities lose jobs, schools close, hospitals shut down, and young people leave. They know the game is rigged, even if they can't articulate exactly how. The rise of populist politics, the decline in social trust, the increase in geographic polarization, these are all symptoms of a system that sorts people into winners and losers based on where they happen to be born. Marcus and Tyler's story isn't just about two individuals, it's about two Americas, separated not by oceans or mountains, but by invisible lines on maps that determine everything about the opportunities available to the people living within them. Your zip code is your destiny in America today, not because it has to be, but because we've chosen to make it so through decades of policy decisions that concentrate advantages in some places and disadvantages in others. The system is working exactly as designed. The question is whether we're ready to design something different, because until we address address zip code inequality directly, until we admit that geography is destiny in America, we'll keep telling ourselves stories about individual success and failure while ignoring the structural forces that make those outcomes predictable. Marcus didn't succeed because he was better than Tyler. He succeeded because he was born in a zip code designed to produce success. Tyler didn't fail because he lacked talent or drive. He faced obstacles that were built into his zip code from birth. The American dream isn't dead, but it's become a geographic lottery. And until we're willing to change the rules of that lottery, we'll keep producing Marcus and Tyler stories, identical kids with identical potential, sorted into different economic realities by the accident of their birth address. And that's the truth about zip codes and success in America. The question is, what are you going to do with that truth?